Hi, my name is Craig Williams. I'm a brand tech specialist here at IBM, and today I'll be walking through a quick demo featuring Maximo Mobile and the calibration process. Without further ado, let's get into the demo. Let's walk through the real-world scenario of Sarah as a QC chemist. Sarah is in the middle of performing a critical batch release on an asset known as HPLC 1001. The validated method she's running requires that the column oven is set at exactly 40 degrees Celsius. But during her system suitability test, she notices something's wrong. The retention times are drifting, and peaks are showing up earlier than expected, which likely means that the oven isn't holding exactly 40 degrees Celsius. Now this puts a hold in her entire analysis, and the batch release is at serious risk of delay. Instead of scrambling through emails and paper forms, Sarah opens up the Maximo Mobile app right from her lab bench. As Sarah opens up the Maximo Mobile app right from the lab bench, she then clicks on the service request icon. She clicks on the plus check mark to create a brand new service request. Because time is sensitive, she marks this as high priority. Then she enters the details of this request. Column oven 1001 failing SST - retention time drift detected. In the description bar, Sarah may not want to be able to type the full description, given that it may take long. So one of the benefits of having the mobile device here is that she can simply click the microphone icon on her keyboard and just say what is the problem and automatically have it typed in the description. So let me click the microphone. Suspect column oven temperature instability. Set point is 40 degrees Celsius, but peaks are eluding too fast. Please investigate and recalibrate. This is blocking the batch release. Sarah can then look over the description to make sure everything's okay. And then when she finishes, she'll go back and finish the process. Another benefit of having the mobile device here is that Sarah also doesn't manually have to type in the asset information, as most assets nowadays have barcode scanners that autofill the asset ID, location, and module. So we'll click over asset, and we click this little bar icon at the top here. We get to the camera, where we'll then be able to scroll to our barcode and see the asset right there. Then we can save the GPS location of the asset if we really want to. Finally, for the attachments, let's say Sarah wants to take a screenshot of the chromotogram or just a screenshot of the asset itself. She can also add it into the request. They can later be viewed by the supervisor or technician. And I should also note that Sarah may leave a comment here that this work needs to be finished ASAP. Which shows an extra sense of urgency for the tech to get the job done correctly. Now that the service request is submitted, it will automatically go through and be created as a work order, which then the supervisor will then approve and send to the calibration tech. So before I move on, I would like to discuss the value here of Sarah being able to create the service request and get it sent off. So for starters, Sarah was able to submit a request within a matter of probably seconds. She was able to send all the information that was needed, the asset ID that was required, the description, as well as any attachments or comments necessary. Now, how this information gets sent all depends on you, as Maximo Mobile is perfectly configurable on whether you want this information to be available solely to the supervisor or to any other techs that are responsible. Another value point to add is that once a service request gets submitted, it is automatically converted into a work order. This cuts down the process of manual paperwork that needs to be entered, as all of the information is sent in a well-documented form, ready for the supervisor's approval, which you'll see once we get there. This is also another component of Maximo, as you can choose to automate any functionality that you want within your workflow process. Now let's switch hats and get in the role of a supervisor. So the notification will pop up on their screen saying that a work order has been submitted, which then they will go over to the approvals tab to view that work order. I'll hit my update. And as you can see here, we already have some work orders that were submitted in the past that are overdue. And Maximo will let you know that these work orders are overdue so that nothing is missed. But let's go down to the new work order that was created. As a supervisor, we already get the view of what it is, the asset, and how much is the labor cost, as you see in 89.10, meaning that it's $89.10. If we click the arrow, we can also view what's in it. We installed or it was a safety plan was included in this work order to ensure that our workers are following within safety guidelines and compliance. We then have here at the top the 5 icons that show the required materials, the work log that was submitted by Sarah earlier, as well as the job plan steps that our technician Calvin will follow. We see the status of the asset, and we can even view the work order history if we want. This gives us more information on if the asset itself needs to be replaced continuously after it has received so many work orders. Finally, we can see any attachments that are tied into the asset itself, such as the troubleshooting guide that shows the instruction sheet of the asset. So now, as a supervisor that we have walked through and we have seen that everything is correct and validated, all we now have to do is hit approve. And now this work order will be sent to our tech Calvin, who will now be responsible in carrying out and finishing this work order. So now finally we dig into the real action, as we're now in the persona of Calvin the technician, who will go through and complete the work that is needed. So the moment Calvin opens up the work order, which we'll go to my schedule, we'll hit refresh, and we'll go to the brand new work order that's submitted. He'll immediately get greeted by the safety plan that he needs to review in order to progress. This is a guardrail that you can set within Maximo Mobile to make sure that your technicians are within safety compliance. And there's 2 guardrails that are set up in this particular demo. One, what you see here, which is reviewing the safety plan, which Calvin, he will do. And he sees that the hazard here is going to be high temperatures, so he needs to wear gloves to protect himself. Okay, he clicks the blue button there, and now that screen has went away. Another guardrail that is set for Calvin is that he needs to make sure he is at the right asset. Now Calvin will use the barcode scanner that we used earlier to make sure that he's on the right asset. So he scrolls down into what we see asset and location and hits the little barcode icon. He'll then walk up to an asset. And in this scenario, we're going to play around and scan an asset that is not ours. So 1006 instead of 1001. We scan it, and look what happens. A notification pops up saying that we either need to rescan or call our supervisor. So Calvin then finds the correct asset, which will go here. We'll rescan, see 1001, scan. Now the asset is confirmed. Great. Now I want to pause here and really just go through on what you see in the interface. The developers of Maximo did a really great job of keeping the user in their mind, as we have tried so hard to make this interface as simple as possible. Something without a lot of buttons or clicks that you can go through, as your techs can just find the right icon, click on it, do their process, and continue going. And you'll notice this as Calvin goes through his job plans. As you'll see, everywhere he goes, there is a highlighted blue button that signals him in the right direction. So now Calvin is ready to go. We'll then click on the top right where the blue bar will say start work. Once we click start work, this will automatically track the labor time, so there's no need to manually enter the labor time afterwards, as Maximo will document it for you, as well as it will keep track of the progress that you're doing. Calvin will now stay at the top of the screen here, review the required materials that were listed before, such as a gasket. He sees a note that is left by Sarah. He can save the location of his work, and now in this 4th bar, he then gets to the job process or the job plan instructions. He's already prepared, read the safety review, so he can click the blue check mark there. Now he needs to perform the visual inspection, which in the visual inspection, he is required to submit an inspection form. We have created one in Maximo Mobile. We'll click on inspection form, and as we see here, if I reset and go through, we get a simple form where Calvin can just click yes, no, enter the temperature, and then immediately finish with the sign off. We start here. Is the door gasket intact? Cracked? Tears? Bitterness? Calvin sees a little bit of damage, so he'll say it's intact. Yes, but there may be any cracks. There may be a crack or brittleness in there, which you can configure that option into Maximo Mobile. There's no salt spills or residue, so we'll say no for this one, so that's good. And then the temperature that's currently set, we'll say that it is at 130 degrees. Then Calvin will click here, sign his name off, save, then everything will be submitted. Now again, this was just an example of an inspection form, but as a supervisor, you can actually go in from the desktop version and create your own version of the inspection form, what you want your employees to submit, or what's in the lines of the guidelines that they're supposed to submit for inspection, and then have it pop up on the mobile device. So once we hit done and we complete the inspection, now we'll just follow the blue check mark and click blue. This is where now we get into the calibration process, as we have to perform the as found check, which if we go back into the main page and we scroll down, we get to calibration details. Now before I get there, I want to touch on these icons that you see up here under asset and location. We've already played around with the barcode scanner, so you know what the first icon is. The second icon shows the meter reading, which we've already typed in before. It was 90. Then in the calendar icon, we have the asset work order history. This views all the work orders in the past, what has happened to the asset, and how it was fixed. And then finally, we get to report work, which this is something that will be done once we complete the work order. Sorry, that was at the top of the screen. Under asset and location, we get to these upwards and downwards area. This shows the status of the asset. Up means that the asset is currently running, while down means that the asset is down. And when you mark the asset as down, the downtime is then automatically tracked. Okay, now that we ran through those icons, we then get to the calibration details where we begin our calibration. Cali will then click on the data sheet. A data sheet is where the readings will be kept. We then click on the as found reading, where Calvin will go through and click the readings that he found as he found the column oven. So for the first part in the nominal input for 100 degrees Celsius, Calvin got the reading of 3.8. For the midpoint for 200 degrees, Calvin got the endpoint of 11.4, which, if you notice, there's already a little bit of drift there. And Maximo alerts us. Then finally, for 300, we instead get the drift of 18.4. This is a huge drift that is way outside of the tolerance. And when we enter this, Maximo will also alert us too that these tolerance points are way out of whack, and Calvin will need to go back and adjust the oven. And it will alert us here with the icon saying fail, meaning that a calibration is absolutely needed, which confirms Sarah's suspicion earlier that the oven needed to be recalibrated. So now that Calvin knows that information, he'll go back to his job plan. He has performed the as found check, and now he needs to go ahead and calibrate and adjust the oven as required. So he goes in, he sees that the oven gasket needs to be replaced. It's still attached, but it is brittle and it's a little unstable, if you will. It's attached, but not attached correctly or appropriately. So he replaces the gasket. So then he can come back and mark that complete. And now he's going to go back and re-enter the readings for the calibration to make sure that it's passed. So now he's going to go to as left, enter the readings. In the first input, he gets a perfect 4.0. The second input, he'll get 12.01, which is close enough. And for the third, he will get 20.02, which again is close enough. Now when he saves these readings, the calibration will show as passed. This is safe. It's safe now for the critical batch to be released. So once all that's loaded, it will be saved in the datasheet, which you can then view it later in the process. Then Calvin will go back and finally click the blue check mark as he finished it. He'll clean up after himself. Once he finishes all the tasks, he'll hit done. Now he will go in the process of reporting the work. Starting with the failure codes, Calvin will click the edit button. The temperature wasn't accurate. There was a sensor drift. He had to recalibrate the sensor. And then finally, for here, he'll have to say that he replaced the gasket. The gasket showed brittleness and had a little tear. Those details will be saved amongst the work order. He can then list any materials that were used, tools that were used, And once he's done that, he can complete the work order. And now Calvin is done with his task, and we have fixed the column oven and made sure that the batches were able to be released. So now that you made it all the way to the end of this video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, hit the like and subscribe button down below so that you stay informed about Maximo and its updates and capabilities. Also, I encourage you to watch some of the other videos so that you get a chance to view some more capabilities of Maximo as well. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all soon.